So on today's episode of Swap Meet Economics, we try and get this new purchase running. And here is this Honda. We somehow ended up with this. I'm not huge into the two-wheel variety. You know, those are dangerous. I stick to three-wheelers. But I guess it was a moment of weakness, and we, had to have it. And what we have is a prime example of something needing a complete restoration. And I am the wrong person for that job. So it's an old Trail 70. And the year, I believe, is 1971. Now, kind of like I mentioned, I was not looking for one of these bikes. It just sort of appeared, in the midst of a morning at the swap meet. And at the time I saw it, it was early in the morning, and I was like, man, that might be a good deal on these. I know they bring some money, but I really didn't have time to do any research or check things out. I just knew that I had grand visions of this thing becoming a pit bike or something. So I come to find out the price I paid maybe wasn't a steal, but it was probably decent. It was in the vicinity of about, a couple of Benjamins. And what that got us was a lot of rust. Well, not too much rust, patina, and some damage here and there. And after, giving things a little bit of a more thorough inspection, a lot of missing parts. Now, since we're not all put together ourselves, this is a good match. There's actually a few clips of actually picking this thing up at the swap meet and trying to get it running. So what we have here is an impulse buy that I definitely didn't need. It is a Trail 70. Now when we rolled this thing in here, we kicked it over. And the spark plug was loose, so that was a good sign of reliability. However, no spark. Now both of the screws were well rounded off, so we used the proper tool for the job to get those out. So in keeping with the scrap theme, we grabbed some random sandpaper out of the swap pile and went to work cleaning up those points. Now we've got spark. So now the quest is to find something flammable, of which we have none. However, we're going to steal something out of an old weed eater. That's definitely fresh. Alright, well that's legit. So we can't turn the bike up to get the fuel in there, so we're just going to dump it down the slide. That's about right. We've got chainsaws with bigger carburetors than this. After a little bit of dumpster diving, we got a gas receptacle to get something fresh from the pump here to supply the mini bike. Got to remember to not drink that. So what are the plans for this thing? Well, we sort of had the motor running, but after giving it a bit of a wide open cruise down the back field, it's burning so much oil that it almost immediately fouls out the plug, and it feels like it's running rich because there's so much extra oil going in there. So we're going to have to take down at least the top end and figure out what's going on there, along with the first gear issue where it's kind of jumping in and out. I mean, wheelies are nice, but you can't be doing that all the time. So among the many missing parts and various bits that are not correct, I don't believe that exhaust is correct. Now the seat, on first glance, I thought maybe was like a modified original. I don't know why it's sort of truncated at the front. But upon further inspection, I don't believe this is the factory seat. I mean, that's Honda quality right there, but the paint code doesn't look correct. There's a nice variety of carpet tacks and staples and stuff in here. You know, but it still serves its purpose, so we probably won't change it. Maybe a bungee cord for extra safety. The handlebars were bent, and when I tried to kind of bend this one back a bit straighter, it kind of just gave way, and well, I guess it's the fold down model now. So that's going to need re-welded. Might as well just get that out of the way. Ooh. Look at that moldy stink bug. That's a science experiment there. So this is the CT70, you know, crashed and trashed. Maybe it's hard to tell with one handlebar, but that front wheel doesn't quite line up with the forks anymore. Somebody's definitely been into the bike before. There's a bunch of new bolts and nuts and stuff. Looks like the engine was out at some point. However, due to the condition of the points, I don't think they got into the motor at all. So we'll see what we run into there. And I appreciate the use of 4.8 hardware everywhere. I mean, you gotta save money where you can. Basically, we're gonna hit every mechanical thing on the bike that makes it go and, well, sort of stop. We'll worry about that later. We gotta save that original rear tire. We're not buying anything new. Now, I know you can kind of throw in some Chinese 125s or, you know, larger motors into this, but I kind of like the fact that it looks mostly original, so we're going to keep as many original parts as we can on this thing. You really don't need headlights. You can always tape a flashlight up there. Doesn't have a front fender, so we can't even cut that off for performance. That exhaust has, you know, full support there. Oh, Leatherman wave. That seems legit, I guess. So look at that. You can hardly tell that from factory. With a little bit of oil on them threads, cleaning stuff up, we was able to get rid of that stack of washers on there. Now we're going to go through all the bearings just to make sure everything keeps on rolling. It's looking a little bit discouraging, the amount of rust on those wheel bolts though. I'm sure that'll come right apart. I really don't want to buy a new sprocket. Maybe we can just flip that around. Most of the controls are all broken or inoperable except for the essentials, the throttle and the rear brake. Beyond that, I guess that's really all you need. It's got one reflector left, and it's broken. I mean, the wiring is just mint. Some fender damage was smoothed out with the English wheel. I mean, the suspension's supposed to do that, right? Front brakes really aren't the important ones. You want side lugs on your wheel for extra traction through the mud. Yeah, those rubber bushings are mint. So the key is long gone. I don't know if we should just wire in a straight up toggle there for the kill switch or try and jam something else in there so we can actually turn the switch. Kind of hard to tell, but is that 666? Is this the devil's bike? Finally figured out you just sort of start unbolting everything and there she goes. Definitely an impressive amount of wear on the pegs. You know, when you have stuff that wants to make you fall off the bike, that's just more of a challenge and makes it more fun. It's always a good sign of maintenance when you've got metric and standard hardware intermixed together. This motor, well, the whole bike, has definitely been ridden hard. I mean, there's even chunks of the head there missing. The shift lever has had a little bit of customization done to it. There might be just a little bit of distortion on that carburetor flange, but nothing we can't fix with a hammer. I will say, I mean, even though there's a fair bit of rust on this thing, I'm surprised some of the bolts are coming out thus far. So I don't think this thing was stored, you know, in a wet ditch for most of its life. Maybe just a damp shed. The Kickstarter is in need of much TLC. We're going to let that drain for a while. Definitely not forget about it on the workbench. So I might have only been mechanicking for like a week or two. I've never had an actual JIS screwdriver before. However, we decided for this project, well, actually they were on sale on Amazon, but we finally got a legit screwdriver. Now, up until then, I mean, yeah, I've always heard that you're supposed to use the right, you know, tool for the job, but a Phillips always worked good enough, especially when you get the old impact driver to hammer those loose. But thus far, I've actually been pretty impressed with the terrible condition of some of these screws that is able to remove. So if you're ever in a moment of weakness and, you know, are willing to spend almost $10 on a screwdriver, might actually be worth it. Whew. Maybe I spoke too soon. Those aren't looking too healthy. I mean, I guess a chisel is a good substitute for a screwdriver. Now, to be honest, I'm really not in my element here. I mean, this is a 4-stroke, and there's like valves and stuff. I mean, what is all this stuff up above the piston?
What the hell is even that?
There's definitely some silicone in here, so, you know, somebody else has been in there before. Some of those O-rings aren't looking too healthy. Not sure if that was contributing to the oil consumption. Probably not. We're only filming portions of this process because I don't know what I'm doing, and this is disassembly by trial and error. So we got the piston, and it's not like terrible. However, if you look close, I don't believe this is supposed to be a 3-piece top ring. So ideally, if this is a standard size or whatever size it is, we'll mic out the cylinder, see what it looks like. But if we can get away with just some rings and maybe a whole bunch of new gaskets and O-rings, that might be the way to go. Into the box it goes. When it returns to the workbench, nobody knows. Well, since I picked up this hog, I guess I gotta live the biker's lifestyle now.